The Thought That Counts is another brilliant episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is the 11th episode of Season 7. It's directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's an absolute joy, and I think it raises a lot of good points. And I think maybe for once, Debra is right to be irritated. Often, and I've mentioned this many times before, I often think Debra overreacts to situations and things are not as bad as they seem. I often don't agree with a lot of her perspectives, but with this one, I'm kind of on Debra's side here. It starts off with Marie's birthday, and Ray has gifted her some figurines just like her mother, his grandmother, had, and that is so thoughtful. It's such a lovely gift, and he accidentally left the receipt in the box, and it turns out these were really expensive. And it also turns out that they were more expensive than Frank and Robert believed, because they actually all pitched in to buy them because they were pretty pricey. But they only paid $30 each. That's how much Ray asked them for. Ray paid $180, and now they think that he paid that money to get all the glory. He intentionally left the receipt in. I don't believe he did it on purpose. And I do believe that he was doing it out of the goodness of his own heart. He's doing really well financially. And we know that Robert's had some difficulties recently. It wasn't that long ago that there were problems with his job, and it was a nice thing for Ray to do. I don't think any of it was intentional, but the scene played out in a way that's really funny. But the main focus is this really thoughtful gift that kind of backfired. We're then in bed with Debra and Ray, and Debra wonders why Ray never puts the same amount of thought into the gifts he gets her, and I am fully on her side there. Yes, be thoughtful with your mother's gifts, but also, if it's your wife and the mother of your children, you need to put a bit of effort in as well. When it comes to that kind of relationship, it really is the thought that counts. And Ray says to her, well, actually, maybe this year I did get you a thoughtful Christmas gift. And he was really convincing. It was a great performance, and I genuinely believed him until he rolls over in bed and we see the expression on his face, and it's very clear that no, he does not have a thoughtful gift for Debra this year. The next thing we see, he is visiting Robert and Amy. And I have to say, I really like that they just kind of jumped back into the relationship with Robert and Amy. They didn't waste any time talking about it. Will they, won't they? There was none of that. They just reconnected. They launched into things immediately. And I really think that was the best approach. In my opinion, there was no need to drag it out or tease us. Will they actually get back together? They just launched into it. And I really, really like that. And when Ray is there, he is talking to them about gifts, and he kind of suggests getting Debra a space heater because she's always cold. And yeah, it's kind of thoughtful, but for me, that's kind of something you get your wife randomly because it's a problem solver rather than a thoughtful gift. If your wife is cold and you genuinely want her to not be cold and you're doing well financially, just go and buy the space heater. Don't wait until Christmas. And obviously Robert and Amy are not having this either. Robert suddenly gets really excited and he's giving all of these ideas, and he ultimately suggests a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird. Debra did her college thesis on this. And we cut to the house, Ray and Debra's house on Christmas Day. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous to look at. Ray hands her the gift. It is, of course, the first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird. And she starts crying. And I am with you, Debra. If somebody gave me a first edition of, for example, something Daphne du Maurier, or a first edition of a Byron book, I can't even imagine how I would react to that. I did have a first edition thus of one of his books. The condition of the book was an absolute mess. But I fully agree with Debra's reaction. I think she reacted in a way that's very, very believable, and that makes it really uncomfortable to watch. Because not only is she overjoyed with the gift, but I think it's fair to say she's also overjoyed by the fact that Ray actually did something thoughtful. And we know that he didn't. Yeah, sure, he probably made a bit of an effort to find the book. I don't know how easy it is to track down the first editions of To Kill a Mockingbird, nor do I know how much it would be. So he did do some work, but Debra's kind of appreciating the wrong aspect there. And then she asks Ray what it was that reminded him of To Kill a Mockingbird, as he said that he'd thought of it when she said something in the city, and he comes up with this bizarre, elaborate explanation, and, well, Debra bought it. And Amy and Robert come over for Christmas, of course, and Ray is really, really milking this book, and he shouldn't have done. He should have just given her the gift, left it at that, but he can't help himself. And Robert also can't help himself as he yells, "That was me!" And well, the cat's out of the bag. And I feel like in that moment, Robert doesn't realise he was also hurting Debra. There was realistically no harm on this one occasion in letting her believe that Ray bought the book off his own back and he thought of it himself, because seeing her so happy would hopefully inspire him to be that thoughtful year after year. Robert can't deal with this, so he ruins the moment that was already a little bittersweet. And then we find out that Robert got Amy Ice Capades tickets, and it turns out that was Marie's idea. And we know this because Marie had also suggested that to Ray as a gift for Debra. And now Robert and Ray are on one side and Debra and Amy are against them. Things have turned around very quickly. And Ray says to Debra, "Now you're becoming my mother," which is not what you want to say to her. And Ray then says something that I do think felt genuine, and I do believe him. I don't think he was just trying to say this to get out of the situation. He says that the reason he puts that much thought into Marie's is because Marie is materialistic. She puts a lot of importance on gifts, whereas he doesn't view Debra that way. He doesn't see her as somebody who cares that much about material possessions. And I genuinely believe him. I do think that is part of the case. I do think he feels the pressure to get Marie something that she won't want to go and exchange. Whereas with Debra, that's not the case. I'm not saying it's a get-out-of-jail-free card and that he gets a free pass for not really being thoughtful, but I do believe him. I do believe him. And as he says, and again, I really like this line. He says, "I stink at this. It doesn't mean I don't care about you." And again, I agree with that. I believe it. I believe everything Ray is saying. And then Marie comes over with some bags on her way to return gifts. A lot of bags. Comically, a lot of bags. And well, it also includes the bull that Amy gave her for Christmas. And she runs away quickly. And then we cut to Robert and Ray at the Ice Capades. And we have some nice festive music to play us out. So I think there are some really great takeaways here. I think the main message is, if you're going to make the effort to be thoughtful for your mother's gifts, make the effort to be thoughtful for your wife. It would be one thing if Ray was 100% against gift giving, he didn't think it was the true spirit of Christmas. That would be a different story, but that's clearly not the case. So be thoughtful. It really is the thought that counts. But also, sometimes somebody just isn't good at giving gifts. And I do also believe that that's the case with Ray. I think Ray, and this is my perspective, I think Ray doesn't like putting that much thought into it because he doesn't think his gifts will ever be good. He doesn't think he's that good at it. So what's the point in putting the effort in, because it's not going to be the right thing anyway. And the solution there, just ask Debra what she wants. Granted, we do get an explanation earlier on where she very clearly told Ray the pajamas she wanted, where to find them, exactly what they looked like, and that didn't work. So maybe asking Debra outright still won't be the solution. But I think there are some really great takeaways here. If you are the Ray of the scenario, make more of an effort. But if you are the Debra, also realise that maybe that person just doesn't have any confidence in their own gift-giving abilities. Again, the whole pajama scenario maybe throws that one out of the window a little bit, but I think there are some great messages here, and it's ultimately a funny episode. Uncomfortable at times because we know things that Debra doesn't, but it's still a joy to watch. The thought that counts is a great episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.